Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Cabinet meeting for today. All members of the Cabinet are here. I'd just like to welcome the officers and Councillor Anne Eves, who is attending. First item on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest from any members. I see none. Then item 2, to receive apologies for absence. We are all present and correct. Then moving on to item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting of the 11th of September 2023, which I propose to take by general affirmation. If you could all just say agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Item 4, to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. Which then moves us on to the substantive part of the agenda, which is item 5, the progress report to June 23. I would suggest that when we go to this item, if Louise could speak to both items 5 and 6, as they're reporting on historic outturns, and it'd be useful if we just put them together. So over to Louise Duffield.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you're correct. So item 5 is the first quarter's budget monitoring, and item 6 brings us up to date to the middle of the year. So as you'll see, overall at the half-year position, we have a net revenue overspend of 654,000, which is funded through Treasury Management windfall. This is after we've made the relevant contributions as set out in the budget for March that were required from Treasury Management. We also have within the second paper, item 6, members will recall that you agreed to participate in the Local Authority Housing Fund tranches 1 and 2 in your September Cabinet meeting, and we now know the detailed numbers for tranche 2, so there's a formal approval for those in here. And finally, we've done considerable work to look at the profile of the capital expenditure, and that's reported into this second report, which gives a sense of when those funds will actually be spent, which helps with cash flow management. Happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Thank you. In terms of dealing with the items, I suggest that we address the recommendations in agenda item 5 first. So if there are any points that people want to raise on those specific agenda items, that will be the way to go. Having dealt with agenda item 5, we'll then move on to the recommendations in agenda item 6. So if I could go to Councillor Anne-Marie Cook, first of all, as portfolio lead, to introduce our debate.
Hello, yes. There's a lot of interesting detail here, but as Councillor Eggleston has said, it's now historic, in particular agenda item 5 for the quarter to June 2023. And as such, I'm happy to endorse the recommendation, and if we talk more on the next one, if necessary, that be so.
Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of questions. I mean, firstly, I think the figure that we carried through in March was £389,100,000 from Treasury Management. So clearly, Treasury Management is being very helpful in terms of balancing the budget, and it's very pleasing to build the general reserve using those funds. I've just got a question about green bins. I see that we've got a saving of £158,000 through buying green bins rather than renting. Perhaps you could just explain that. It's just a question about really sort of the way in which it sits on the budget, I think, to some extent, because clearly it's money which is going out. And I think also in paragraph 16, on there's a term reinstatement that I didn't understand. That it's the result of insurance premium increases. Cost of potential reinstatement. Perhaps you could tell me what's that is as well.
Yeah, so I might ask my colleague Rachel to help, but the green bins thing is MRP, which you'll remember from Audit Committee is quite complex. It's just a way of accounting for the capitalisation of something. If you'd like more detail, I'm going to ask Rachel to take that. The comment on insurance is simply that the sector is putting its prices up. So similar to audit, both of those things are costing us substantially more than we had expected.
If there are no other comments, firstly, my apologies to Councillor Reeves. I should have come to you before we started looking at this item, but I will make sure to remember for agenda item 6, which is a bit more current anyway. Just a couple of observations from me before we go over to the recommendations, and really to pick up the in paragraph 19 and 24, where we've got these funds set aside, and specifically looking at the Martlet shopping centre and and I know people are interested in this, is that balance about when do you commit funds for what is intended as a temporary use and short-term purposes, whilst we as a district council are still negotiating on what we would like to see as the long-term solution, which is the regeneration. And just to assure Cabinet and to members and people listening that that is a very live issue which we keep regularly under review, so that we know which is the best solution to deploy. As there are no other comments, we'll go now to the recommendations on page 13, and if we could just indicate our decision accordingly. And that's unanimously approved. Which then brings us on to agenda item 6, and I will now go to Councillor Anne Eves first.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for dealing with the urban park question, which was something else I'd wanted to ask about. This is a question about page 22, para 22, Burgess Hill, Beadlands Gypsy and Traveller site. It says 489,000, and Burgess Hill Place and Connectivity Programme, 492,000. Are these sums still available to be spent on these schemes, and do we have any idea when they might be spent? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillors. I can say that they are still available to be sent. They're allocated. Perhaps Louise or Judy can give you more detailed information on when they might be deployed.
Hello, Councillor Eves. Yes, just to endorse, this is simply reprofiling money that's already been agreed into the following financial year.
Thank you. So to introduce this item, I'll now go over to Councillor Anne-Marie Cook.
Okay. I just want to say thank you for production of this information for the quarter to September. We're confident that this year we have another shortfall at this stage of income against expenditure, but again, as last year, we're confident that it will be mitigated by successful treasury management. I don't have any particular comments except to say that I'm happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Anne-Marie Cook. I'll now open it up to anybody else who may wish to comment. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just an observation that clearly landscape with a pressure of £100,000 in part year is something that we need to obviously keep an eye on, just to make sure that that doesn't drift any further out. And I noted that building control, I can't read my own notes, but building control was also had a pressure. And I think, I just wondered in passing as to whether or not, as I understand it, a lot of developments are able to appoint a building control officer that is not linked to the council. And I just wondered whether that was something which was affecting income in this area.
Thank you. I don't know if Simon Hughes.
Thank you. Yes, certainly. There is a market for building control, so we compete in that market. Quite a lot of large developers already have an agreement with their building control companies all across the country. So our role is to compete with that. Companies can take building control from elsewhere.
I can come back, Chairman. I just observed from the particular example that I tripped across that maybe things weren't being done as well as they might be done under our control, but it's just an observation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, just a couple of comments from me again on the point that came up in agenda item 5, the reprofiling of the capital programme. These are monies that we have in the budget to be deployed. On the temporary accommodation, obviously at the previous cabinet meeting, we agreed to acquire the properties, and the recommendations are asking us to endorse that. Final point, of course, is that yes, there are pressures in the budget, but the extraordinary income that we're receiving on Treasury management is supporting the budget and supporting it well at this present time. If there are no further comments, just go to the recommendations on page 19 in paragraph 5, if you could vote accordingly. Thank you, and that is approved. Now brings us on to agenda item 7 and onwards, and there's a mix in the agenda now where we can decide whether we go into a closed session at some point and exclude the press and public. I'm proposing that we deal with agenda item 7 and 9, which is the procurement of the cleaning contract, and then agenda items 10 and 12, which is the revenues and benefits enforcement agent procurement, that we deal with all of that in open session, mindful that we don't disclose any commercial or confidential information in our discussions. We've read the contracts, and that way we needn't exclude press and public from the meeting, and that way we don't have to address agenda items 8 and 11. I hope that was well followed. Thank you. So we would now move on to agenda item 7, which is procurement of the cleaning contract. And I'll go over to Simon Hughes first of all.
Thank you. This is to seek approval to procure a new cleaning contract, and it's a cleaning contract that covers council offices, our pavilions and our public toilets. The current contract is coming to an end in the summer of 2024, so now is the right time to commence the procurement process. We've previously procured this jointly with Horsham and Crawley Borough Councils, as that gave us the best opportunity to secure value for money. And it's our intention to do the same for this new contract. The contract term will be for 6 years, and also then to manage the contract, manage the mobilisation, and to assess the performance of the contract. We intend to have a no fault break clause after a minimum of 12 months. Many thanks.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Rees, I don't know if you have anything to say. Thank you. If I could then go over to Councillor Chris Hobbs.
Thank you. As Simon said, this is a partnership contract with 2 other authorities, which of course extracts best value in these kind of negotiations. The service, as Simon has mentioned, covers council offices and buildings and includes public toilets and pavilions. It's very much a procedural process in starting that process, that contractual application process. But I think we wish to put it on record that we're grateful to the operators for their work and keeping facilities open when this and many other councils are operating with significant new financial pressures, is key, and acquiring this contract is a commitment to demonstrate that we intend to keep those facilities open.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, and on the basis that we've considered the detail in the exempt appendix, I will move us to the recommendations on page 25, which is delegating the authority to the Director of People and Commercial Services to procure the new cleaning contract from 1st of June 2024 and delegate authority to the Director of People and Commercial Services to award the new cleaning contract to the preferred bidder following the evaluation of tenders. If we could vote accordingly. And that is approved, which will then move us on to now agenda item 10, which is revenues and benefits enforcement. And go back over to Simon Hughes to introduce this.
Thank you. This is to seek authority to procure some new contracts for enforcement agencies. As you'll be aware, the vast majority of residents of businesses make payments as we would expect according to their bills, but there is a proportion who cannot or will not pay. And the purpose of this is to work with them initially proactively and then obviously in enforcement to gain that income that is owed to us. As you'll appreciate, the service approaches this initially by supporting people, working out what we can do to support them to pay. But should that not be successful, then enforcement agents also then come in, do the same, do similar work, and then, if needed, take enforcement action. The current contract comes to an end at the end of this calendar year, and we'll be using a procurement framework in order to gain these services. Many thanks.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Anna Hughes. Okay, thank you. So I'll now go over to Councillor Anne-Marie Cook to introduce this debate.
Thank you. I've reviewed and asked some questions on this procurement process and the operation of the arrangement, the operational details. This is an important element of what we do and potentially of a sensitive nature. But I'm pleased to say that I'm very satisfied with the answers to my questions, and I'm pleased to support the recommendations to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to comment? Councillor Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to emphasise the fact that the key to what we try and do is support people falling into arrears and subsequently perhaps into homelessness. The penalty builds up in terms of the enforcement within this, and so clearly there is an absolute need to avoid it if we possibly can. And perhaps it's just a moment that we could, just to note that we've recently been able to announce about the Housing Support Fund Tranche 4, which does include an element for people to bid to that to cover rent and other costs if they're unable to afford it. I'm not actually sure if the council tax falls into that, but it seems to me that it would carry an equal priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Simon, do you want to comment on that point?
Thank you. Yes, as I can confirm, our focus is working upstream with people. Clearly, we would prefer people not to get into debt. That's not helpful to them. That's not helpful to us. So there are a variety of support services that we supply, and also that the voluntary sector supply through our funding in order to assist people with things like budgetary management, ways in which they can procure, also they can get goods and services more cheaply, be it power and so on. So that's our focus initially. Really, this contract is for when those things haven't worked and we then need to claim our debt.
Thank you. If there's nothing more, then we can move to the recommendations on page 29 on the basis that we've considered the detail in the exempt appendix to this item, i.e. the contract, and on that basis we're asked to agree the procurement of 2 enforcement agent contracts for the Revenue and Benefits Department, and note that the award of the contract is delegated to the Director of People and Commercial Services. And that is passed unanimously, which means that we have dealt with the exempt item in agenda item 12. There are no more items on the agenda, and we can call this Cabinet meeting to a close. Thank you.